Alright lads, my name is Goblin, and today I'm giving you an updated tutorial for 6.1. All the current videos on YouTube are completely outdated, including my own. Basically the season's been going on for about a month and you know, everyone knows the crack now. And a lot of things have changed, a lot of things. How you gear, the rotation, loads of things have changed, and in this video we are going to sort everything out and make sure you're all up to date so you can start pushing some rating. Firstly, I'm going to teach you how to correctly build up your character. You know, gear, talent, glyphs, all that jazz. Secondly, we'll go into the damage. How to get the pressure out there and how to slaughter the living hell out of everyone in Arena. Thirdly, we'll go into utility. How to do the crowd control, how to keep your team alive, and how to keep yourself alive. Fourthly, we'll go into macros. Proper, decent, hard-ass PvP macros. Then we'll teach you how to apply all the knowledge you learn in this video to PvP environments like Arena and Rated Battlegrounds. So that will involve target calling, all that kind of stuff. And then I think I'll finish giving you some viable Arena comps that you might want to try out playing your DK. So let's jump into talents. Now the explanation of what these talents do and how to use them will come later in the utility section. I will however talk about what glyphs do. Now what we're going to do is I'm just basically going to show you your options. In the first tier you only want to be picking Plague Leech. This is the only one that's worth using. It's a massive increase to your single target damage, let's leave it there. Lichborn is the only viable choice in the second tier, massive increase to your healing, let's leave it there. In the third tier, 90% of the time you want to be using Asphyxiate. If you're in a comp which has a lot of stuns, then you definitely want to go for Chillblains. And Chillblains and Death's Advance sometimes have some advantages in Ingels. I will however always go for Chillblains in Rated Battlegrounds because the peels you can generate from Chillblains are just insane. You can really fucking save your FCs by picking Chillblains. Now in the fourth tier, well, people have been talking about this for about 4 years now. Basically, if you want to go for Blood Tap, you're going to get more healing. And with Death Siphon, and you're going to get more control over your runes. Runic Empowerment, you're going to have a slight increase to your burst DPS. Runic Corruption, you're going to have a slight increase to your overall DPS. I would go for Runic Empowerment when you know you're not going to take a lot of damage. Go for Blood Tap when you know you're going to get trained all game and take a lot of damage. In the next tier we have the option of Death Siphon or Death Pact. Unfortunately we can actually go for Conversion. They're all very viable, but Conversion is a bit of a pain in the ass. I would be more inclined to say go for Death Siphon. It's received a really nice buff recently, and while you're using Blood Tap and Plague Leech, it's going to benefit a lot because you can start generating a lot more Death Runes to use it with Death Siphon, and you also have passively 2 Death Runes over time in Frostbeck, so that's also very nice. In the next tier, second to last tier, go for Gorfian's Grasp in Rated Battlegrounds to masquerade people into mass crowd control. Go for Desecrated Ground in Arena. Remorseless Winter, easily counterable, it's not really worth going for. In the last tier, it's between Necrotic Plague and BOS. BOS is a massive increase to your burst DPS. It favours a haste build. I think it's a very, very viable option. It just got buffed. Necrotic Plague, it just makes your rotation a lot simpler because you don't need to reapply your disease to a Plague Strike to use Plague Leech, so it's a slight increase to your DPS, overall DPS, but I think BOS is the more viable option here. I'd be more inclined to say go BOS because the burst you can get from BOS is pretty insane. For your first glyph, you want to go for Icy Touch, and you never want to choose anything but Icy Touch. Icy Touch is a mandatory talent. It is extremely, extremely strong. For your second talent, glyph even, you want to go for Glyph for Runic Power. This is also quite a mandatory talent. Maybe a few situations where you can sacrifice it. You know, whenever you're slowed, you start generating Runic Power to great advantage. Your third one, however, is not as mandatory. However, it becomes mandatory in certain situations. If you're against a Warlock or a Mage or any other class that casts their crowd control, you want to go for Dark Simulacrum so you can start stealing that crowd control and start applying it to the enemy team. If that isn't the case, then you'd be more inclined to go for Regenerative Magic. It's going to prevent you from getting into a lot of CC, so that's not bad. Swift Death is also a very viable choice because you can destroy Shaman Totems with Soul Reaper and get the speed increase, so whenever you're against a Shaman, I definitely recommend going for that. Shifting Presences isn't bad, it's alright, but it's not massively amazing. Icy Runes might be quite a viable choice to go with if you're going with Death Siphon. I would definitely recommend going for the Glyph of Death Grip when you're against, when you're in rated battlegrounds for just a little bit of extra range. It's not bad at all. And that's actually Glyph of, where is it? And I meant to say Glyph of Icy Reaper, by the way, just before. Glyph of, where is it? Empowerment. You definitely want to go for that when you're in the situations where you're in a 2v2 comp and you have no healer, because that's going to definitely increase your healing by a lot and keep you alive. On the screen you will see each individual gear piece that you need to buy and equip, which is also in the description. The stat priority is basically to stack haste and versatility, since they are the only stats in the game which are going to give you an incredible benefit. Mastery is completely lame because it only increases the damage of Frost Strike, and a two-hand Frost Strike doesn't do a lot of damage, so it's not really worth it. Then you've got Multi-Strike, which is completely broken in PvP and doesn't do enough damage for it to be worth stacking. And then we've got Crit, which we obviously don't need because our procs give us a 100% chance to crit. The reason why we stack Haste is because it increases your damage in a number of different ways. First of all, it increases the chance of killing machine to occur, which is an effect, as basically a proc which makes either your next Obliterate or Frost Strike guaranteed critical hit, which is a massive increase to your DPS. Your runes overall are going to be coming back a lot quicker, so you can get out more Obliterates and you can start generating a lot more runic power for your Frost Strike. So overall, your damage is going to get out there a lot quicker. It's also very beneficial for Breath of Sidrigosa, because that ability completely relies on runic power, and you're going to be generating a lot of runic power, and when you're kind of sagging out your runic power, you're going to be able to keep capping the runic power up to keep Breath of Sidrigosa going longer and longer, simply by the fact your runes are coming back quicker. Stacking Haste also has a great benefit to your utility. You'll be able to do more Chains of Ice, and you'll also be able to do more Death Strike, which obviously results in more healing. The reason why we stack Versatility is primarily because the damage increase is insane. It's like more than strength, and it's also going to increase the healing of certain abilities like Death Strike and Death Siphon. So overall, great all-round benefit. So before we start dropping fulls, you want to make sure that you're in Frost Presence for as long as humanly possible. The only time you want to go out of it is when you're taking a little bit too much damage, and then you want to go into Blood Presence. You may want to try out Unholy Presence. I've seen a few DKs going for that. The movement and speed increase is very nice. The haste increase is going to make your runes come back even quicker. You might want to try it out. It needs a bit more testing. I'm not saying it's completely unviable. I think it's actually, it could have some minor potential. And you also want to make sure you're using a two-handed sword. Two-handed is winning at the moment overall in DPS. Now that we've got past all the boring and need to know stuff, I'm going to teach you how to destroy shit. So in this damage section, first of all we're going to go through the priority system. Obviously we're not going to call it a rotation because it's not, but nonetheless you do have to do things in a certain order, in a certain way to maximize your DPS. And then we're going to go into Breath of Sidrigosa, because that deserves its own little section in itself, because we need to know how the hell to use it properly, because it's a bit of a risky cooldown, it's a bit difficult to use, but chill, I'm going to teach you how to use it properly and maximise your damage with it. So let me draw your attention to the three major abilities in a Frost Death Knight's arsenal, and they are Obliterate, Frost Strike, and Icy Touch with the Purge glyph. Now, just get them in your head, and let's also acknowledge the procs with Frost DK. The first one is called Killing Machine. Okay, this has a chance to occur on every melee swing, but also the chance occurs again whenever you hit with a special melee attack with Obliterate or Frost Strike. So, how you use it? Well, you have to prioritize the Killing Machine proc with Obliterate, because that's going to get the most damage out there. If you use it with the Frost Strike, the damage is like cut in half. It's nowhere near as good. But nonetheless, if your runes are taking a fairly long time to regenerate, then yeah, just use it on a Frost Strike. Otherwise, if you're waiting for too long, you know, for the Obliterate to come off for cooldown, come off runes, then you're actually going to lose damage. So focus it, prioritize it using your Obliterate, because that's going to get the most damage. Your other proc is called Freezing Frog, which has a chance to occur on every Obliterate hit. So I don't know what the chance is. I think it's like 10%. And what it does is it makes your Howling Blast or Icy Touch completely free of runes. But we'd only be thinking about Howling Blast. Howling Blast is nowhere near as good, or nowhere near as effective as using this with Icy Touch with the Purge Glyph. Let me put it in perspective for you. Now, what's it called? Power Ward. It absorbs about quarter of one's health, and you can purge that with one Icy Touch. So effectively, you're doing a quarter of someone's health in damage, which is just as much as an Obliterate crit, really. So using the Purge Glyph is way more. It's going to put way more pressure out there than using it with a Howling Blast and a set bonus. A set bonus obviously isn't a thing like we discussed earlier. So the thing is, you don't want to be spamming the shit out of that Freezing Frog proc with the Icy Touch. Only use it when you absolutely need to. It doesn't matter if you're holding on to it for a long time and it's occurring more than once and therefore what you're wasting the first one. Only use it when you need it. Okay, this can be to purge buffs. Okay, even if it's an intellect buff, a stamina buff, any of that, use it and purge the living shit out of people. I mean, how much health does, what's it called, power, what is it, the priest stamina buff? I mean, it gives you quite a decent amount of health, and you can just purge that off, so you're effectively constantly removing like an extra 40k HP off a target, which is really nice. So use it to purge off buffs, even if they're damage buffs. Use it to purge off. It's like certain cooldowns you can take off as well. Like priests have borrowed time, which increases their haste. Yeah, just fucking yeah. You're not having that, mate. That's what's going to be going through your head. Yeah, you have a really nice fucking haste buff there. Well, say goodbye to it, mate, because I'm going to purge it off you. And also, obviously, use it when hots and absorption shields, all that kind of thing, because it's definitely going to be very beneficial to your pressure. The next thing I need to draw your attention to is the talent Plague Leech. Now, Plague Leech is only going to work if you have both of your diseases on a current target, so this means you have to keep your diseases on your target all the time, especially just before Plague Leech comes off the cooldown. You can do this every minute or so with Obliterate, but because a Plague Leech has a 30-second cooldown, it's at 25. It's 25, sorry. So in the middle, you're going to have to use a Plague Strike. Now this isn't a bad thing. So just make sure you always have your dots on your target and use Plague Leech whenever it's off cooldown to regenerate that 2 extra runes and, you know, thus get another Obliterate out there. Whenever you use an Unholy Rune, this can be with Soul Reaper, by the way. Soul Reaper, you want to use it over time below 45% health, or with a Plague Strike to get your diseases back going. You want to fill in also with an Icy Touch, because you're not going to be able to use an Obliterate because you've just used one Unholy Rune, so you're like cutting the Obliterate in half. But if you follow up the Icy Touch, you know, you're going to get a bit of purge pressure. It doesn't even matter if it doesn't purge. But the thing is, it just makes your runes start regenerating quicker, and it's like it's really good for your rune cycles, so that your runes kind of come back off the cooldown altogether, so then you can start spamming out your Obliterates again, because obviously they consume 2 runes. So let's talk about the cooldowns now. We have Pillar of Frost. Basically, use this in sync with all your strength cooldowns. You know, with a trinket, with procs, with all that kind of thing. Sync it in with your CC and your crowd control. Sync it in with your arena partner's damage. Perhaps he has cooldowns off. You know, pop your cooldowns together to maximize your pressure on the enemy team. And basically, just wait for the perfect time to use it. Maybe before a hard swap on a healer. You know, just don't just use it whenever the hell you want. Try and think intelligently how you're going to use it, because it's a cooldown that's going to really increase your damage. So you don't want to waste it, because it's got a 1 minute cooldown. 1 minute cooldown's nice. You want to make sure you make use for it every minute, so you're not like chilling on it for about 2 minutes, because that's obviously going to be a massive DPS loss. We also have Empower Rune Weapon. Now, the only time I'd recommend to use this is with Breath of Strangulate, which we'll talk about in a bit. But if your target's really low, and you really need to score the kill and you have absolutely no runes or pressure, then yeah, that's probably the best time to pop it. So Breath of Strangulate is a massive runic power sapper. So the only thing you need to focus on really is keeping your runic power topped for as long as humanly possible. What I generally do before I pop Breath, we call it BOS, is basically I max out my runic power. So I'm on 100 runic power, and then before I pop it, because I want my runes, I want to start using my runes while I'm doing Breath BOS, so that I can keep my runic power going. So what I'll do is I wait about 3 seconds, and whenever you're waiting on your runes, this is the perfect time to think about crowd controlling, think about peeling, think about all those kind of things. So you're waiting your runes like 3 seconds, and then you pop Breath. Then you're going to start, let it sap out your runic power. Hopefully it will regenerate your runes, which will be really nice. And then you start consuming the runes very slowly until you're about Breath of Strangulate. You get your runic power back up. And then when Breath of Strangulate is like knocking about at about half health, you pop your Plague Leech for another obliterate. But when you're about at a half runic power, then you want to pop Empower Rune Weapon. Because what that's going to do is it's going to increase your runic power by even further. It's going to rack it up about 25, so then you probably be capped again. And you're going to start sapping it out again, and then you start using your runes. But you kind of like use your runes with a bit steadily, because you don't want to be capping on your runic power, because then you're obviously wasting your time. You just like slowly bringing it back, doing your obliterates, topping up your runic power. And then hopefully, because you've got a nice big haste build, you obviously your runes will be coming back a little bit quicker, and you might be able to keep BOS topped up. Now, I haven't tested this fully, and I'm not sure if a lot of DKs are doing it, but I would also recommend going in Unholy Presence just before you pop Breath of Strangulate. So if you know you're going to pop BOS, start going in Unholy Presence, rack up your runic power with obliterating. Obviously don't use any frost strikes. Never use frost strikes when you're popping BOS. Rack up your runic power, and then start doing your BOS rotation like I just explained. But the thing is, your runes are going to come back slightly a bit quicker, and it might just be enough to keep BOS going for like an extra 5 seconds, which is obviously going to be a hell of a lot of damage. It's like an extra like 60k. So I would recommend going Unholy Presence just before you pop BOS. You may disagree with that idea, because obviously Frost Strike increases the amount of runes, the runic power you generate from your obliterate, so you can argue that that's going to be more beneficial. Or you can give Unholy Presence a go. I would definitely do some testing myself and get back to you on that. I actually missed a few important things in this damage section. I'm just going to briefly go over it. Basically, to get the maximum amount of benefit from your haste and from your runic corruption, and from just runic corruption if you're going for a runic corruption talent, to be honest, for runic empowerment as well. We'll talk about runic corruption first. What you want to do is you want to make sure that 3 runes are on cooldown. So a blood rune, a frost rune, and an unholy rune, preferably even more than that. You want to make sure they are regenerating when you start to break into your frost strikes to regenerate your runes. Otherwise, basically you're wasting it. Like if you've only got 1 rune on the cooldown, you are only regenerating that 1 rune when you get the proc, when you could be regenerating 3. Okay, so basically it's a waste of time. And if you're doing it in this method, if you're waiting, using a lot of runes before you do Frost Strike, you're going to massively increase your overall damage. The same goes for Runic Empowerment. Now, you only want to start using Runic Empowerment when you have fully... Hang on, let me read it 1 second. Spent a fully depleted rune, yeah. So you only want to be using Frost Strike to get a Runic Corruption proc when you have fully depleted runes. Now, fully depleted runes are not the runes that you just used. Say you use 2 Blood Boils. Okay, you've just consumed 2 runes, or you've consumed 2 obliterates. That second rune, the second blood rune, will be the fully depleted rune, because that won't start regenerating until the first one is back. So you only want to be using Frost Strike when you have all your runes off the cooldown, or well, at least one anyway, because otherwise you're going to get the Runic Corruption, Runic Empowerment proc, and it's not going to regenerate anything, so it's actually going to be a complete waste of time. So make sure you're using all your runes before you start using your runic regenerative abilities like with Frost Strike or even Conversion or anything like that. So let's give you an example of first of all the main rotation, and then we'll start going in how to use BOS properly. Now I'll probably make a few mistakes, obviously because this is live, so you just have to bear with me. I'm going to open with, what is it called, Outbreak, to get my diseases rolling, pop cooldowns, and then you start going into your main rotation. If I need to purge, then yeah, consume that. Going to consume it now just as a filler between, just like to wait for your Obliterate to come back off cooldown. And I've got a fair amount of runes on the cooldown now, so I'm going to start using the Frost Strikes in there. If I need to use this, then I will use it. And what else is there? Obviously, what is it called? Plague Leech. You want to be using that whenever it's off the cooldown. So I'm gonna use it right now. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use a Plague Strike to get my diseases back. Gonna pop the Plague Leech, and there you go. And then to get it back, obviously I've got my Frost Fever always on there, but I mean just filling with the Plague Strike. Gonna start using Frost Strikes to get my runes back. And that's pretty much it. Just remember, prioritize Killing Machine with Obliterate. Use Plague Leech whenever it's off the cooldown. Only use the free Icy Touch Purge thing when you need to use it. And what else is there? Obviously reapply diseases with the Plague Strike if you need to, and only use Frost Strike when you have a fair amount of runes on the cooldown. So now I'm going to try and show you a pretty long duration of BOS. I'll probably make a few mistakes because it's kind of hard to talk through it at the same time. I concluded that to open to get BOS going, you want to use the Frost. You want to be in Frost Presence, but if you're in a situation where you capture runic power, or you can acquire runic power, like through getting slowed through AMS and stuff, then Unholy Presence is kind of nice. The problem with Unholy Presence, it's just kind of hard to tank up that runic power. So anyway, save your cooldowns, open with Obliterate, Outbreak even, and then start open with your Obliterate, and just tank up your runic power, and then just be a little bit patient, and wait until you can absolutely cap on the runic power. And then when you're at about full runic power, just wait for your runes. You don't need to wait for them all, like the whole duration, but wait just for a tiny bit, and then pop all your cooldowns into BOS, and then just start bringing your runic power back up gradually. And then when you absolutely have nothing to do, pop primary weapon as quick as possible. And I'm keeping it going for quite a long time. Pop AMS maybe, or yeah, I can keep it going for a little longer. And I don't know how long I've kept it going, but that was a pretty long duration. I could probably keep it longer in a PvP situation because you can get slowed and then you start generating runic power, and you can use AMS to start generating runic power and all that kind of stuff. So as you can see, you just tank up your runic power, and you let your runes generate a bit. You're just a little bit patient. You don't need to wait for them all, and then you just start popping BOS. Your runes start coming back, and obviously, just like whenever you get your runes back, you use your runes as quick as possible and gradually keep capping up your runic power, and then go on for as long as humanly possible. I actually kept that BOS going for 21 seconds there. That's 21 ticks, which is quite a lot of damage. In PvP, it's a little bit harder because sometimes you get out of melee range very often, and you get pushed around the spot and CC'd. But generally, just like try and save it for the opportune moment, so that you don't waste it, if you know what I mean. I also actually forgot to use Plague Leech completely for some reason when I was using BOS. Just remember to use that whenever you can, basically. And then you can get you probably get an extra few ticks just by using that Plague Leech, which is kind of nice. First of all, I'm going to go into crowd control. The only ability that you want to be using for crowd control, in the tier of level 58, you do not want to be using Death's Advance or Chill Blaze. All the time, you want to go for Asphyxiate. It gives you a massive crowd control uptime, reduces a lot of healing. Because that's essentially what crowd control does. It completely blocks healing. What you want to do is you want to use your crowd control on the healer while pressuring the DPS. Now, Asphyxiate, it's 30-second cooldown, 5 seconds stun. You want to be using it whenever you have it available. The thing you need to be the thing you need to learn about crowd control is you want to chain crowd control. So you want to use your stun, and then your arena pattern. You want to say, for instance, Hunter, right? Hunter trap, 7 seconds, 5 seconds stun, silence. You want to chain it all up with your healer as well, doing the crowd control, and you want to wait until your crowd control is completely finished. It's this thing that people will penalise you for, is overlapping your crowd control. You know, you see your trap there, it's only been on for 2 seconds, and then you stun. Don't do that. Wait for the trap to, you know, use its full duration, and then you stun. Because you want to have the maximum. You want the healer or whoever you're crowd controlling out of the game for the maximum time possible. So that's Asphyxiate. Okay, next crowd control is Mind Freeze. Basically, it's essentially a 4-second silence. You want to be using this on. You can use this on a healer even though you're not on him. You just need to move over and kind of lock him. But what it does, whenever a healer is casting, in the middle of that cast, if you use it, you silence them in that spell tree for 4 seconds. Now, what you've got to be careful of is what healers do, and other DPS, is they try to fake cast. So they cast it a bit, and then they cancel it themselves to trick you into using Mind Freeze, putting it off cooldown, so that then they can follow up with free casting. You want to be careful of that. You want to wait until the cast is as late as possible before you actually lock it. You want to be careful of that. And also, some healers, for instance, a Resto Shaman will cast Lava Burst. Obviously, if you lock him in fire spells, you can still heal. So don't do that. Be wary of that kind of thing. Now, the next crowd control ability is the most overpowered ability in the game. Okay, no shit. Problem is, it is the hardest ability to use in the game, and that is Dark Simulacrum. Essentially, what you do is, as soon as you see a healer or DPS casting, for instance, a Warlock casting Fear, as soon as you see the cast bar up, you pop Dark Simulacrum, and then you steal the Fear. Okay, that's the only way you want to be using Dark Simulacrum, is to steal crowd control. DK lack crowd control, but with Dark Simulacrum we have too much crowd control. So this is what separates a really good DK from an average DK, is really good spell steals. That you need to master Dark Simulacrum, how to use it properly, and you'll be pushing some seriously fucking high rate, because this is the most. It is just an amazing ability. So you want to be making it. I'll talk about macros later, but you want to be making Arena 1, 2, 3 macro. You want to only be using Dark Simulacrum for crowd control. Now, what we also have, it's not really a crowd control, but it's a slow, so we're going to count it as a crowd control. It's Chains of Ice. Now, it ruins your rotation a bit, but you have to use it sometimes. You know, put them in a slow for a decent amount of time. It is decent slow, to catch up on ranged. If you can't catch up on range, then you have to use it. It's just how it is. But you also want to be spamming this, because you can spam 4 of these in a row. You want to be spamming them on melee DPS. For instance, like peeling your healer or peeling your arena partner. So it's a really, really good peel. Just make sure you learn how to use it properly. Now, we also have Death Grip. Obviously, that is a gap opener. And actually, it's actually a damage buff now these days. As soon as you use Death Grip with the set bonus, the next ability becomes 25%. It gets 25% more damage. You want to use that, at the optimum time when you have like strength boxes, strength cooldowns, and you've got a killing machine proc with Obliterate. But you can also use this on the focus target to interrupt casts. I mean, it's not massive, but it can still be a little bit helpful. That is essentially it for crowd control. You might be thinking, what about Remorse Winter? Remorse Winter is fucking garbage. Don't use it. Okay, let's go into defensive cooldowns and healing. So first of all, we've got Anti-Magic Shell, which you want to be using this as late as possible, because it is your strongest defensive cooldown. It blocks pretty much all magic damage. Nobody's going to damage you through Anti-Magic Shell if they've got a brain. But use it when you're like 10% health, 10-20% health. You want to use it as late as possible, because it's kind of an unforgiving cooldown, and it is your strongest defensive cooldown. It also starts generating runic power whenever you absorb damage, which is also helpful. So you can use that in sync with basically getting more damage out. We've also got Icebound Fortitude. It's really good to pop you out slows. We'll talk about that kind of stuff later. But whenever you're stunned, you can use it to pop out. But really, you want to be using this when you're taking a lot of damage, because it reduces your damage taken by 20%, which is actually pretty decent. Important thing to notice is actually Blood Presence. This also is something you want to be using when you're taking a lot of damage. You want to switch into Blood Presence. You want to open in Blood Presence just to scare people away as well, but Blood Presence you want to be using definitely for taking a lot of damage. Okay, let's talk about healing. The most healing you're going to get from any ability is definitely Death Strike. It is a decent fucking heal, and it does more healing the more kind of damage you are doing at the same time. So you want to be, if you're in a desperate situation, you want to pop your strength cooldowns simply to heal with Death Strike. The thing that's great about this, you can use free Death Strike, so it's like heal 15k, 15k, 15k. It's a decent heal, and it probably won't be 15k, it'll be a lot more, it'll be like 20 to 30k. The other healing ability is Lichborn. What it does is increases your leech by 10%. What leech does is whenever you de-damage, percentage of that damage becomes healing. Now, obviously you want to be using this in sync with your strength cooldowns and doing as much damage as possible whenever you have Lichborn available to get the most healing possible. You also have this window of choice between Death Pact, Death Siphon and Conversion. People are saying Conversion is probably the best option. It is a bit heftier than Runic Power, but it is, in Frostbite, I think it absorbs the least. You probably want to be going for Conversion whenever, you know, because it's kind of really nice with Necrotic Plague, because you're generating that Runic Power, so you're not lacking Runic Power. So it is good to use. It is good to use because it's more persistent, it's more reliable than Death Pact with its hefty cooldown and actually absorbing healing on you. So Death Pact can actually get you fucking killed sometimes, which is a bit shit. But obviously the healing, it's really your choice, but I would probably recommend Conversion. Once you nail how to use that properly, you'll be alright. So let's talk about how to break yourself out of CC. That is something that DK is probably the strongest than any other class in the game, is by breaking yourself out of CC. The biggest one is Desecrated Ground. What it does is it pops you out of any crowd control apart from silence, I think. You can also pop you out of roots now these days, which is really helpful. Basically, you crowd control, use Desecrated Ground, it acts like a trinket basically. But as long as you stay within the radius, you also prevented from any further crowd control, so you want to stay in it as long as possible. For instance, if you see more crowd control incoming, you want to stay in it. You want to stay there in your Desecrated Ground because you're there, you're safe, you're moist. Block any other crowd control. Lichborn, we talked about it before. It also pops you out of sleep, spheres and charms, so that could be mind control, it could be fear, sleep, I don't know, not sleep, I don't know, sleep. I don't think DK could be sleeped in any way. I think only beasts can be sleeped, so don't be worrying about that. But obviously Icebound Fortitude can pop you out of stuns, and then obviously we have Trinket, which pops you out of anything. So let's just touch on the remaining utility left in the game. That's Scorpion's Grasp. So what you want to be opting for this in Rated Battlegrounds. What you do is you basically, I'll talk about it a bit later, you mass grip into mass crowd control, for instance Solar Beam, Ring of Frost, Howling Fear. I don't think that exists in the game anymore. But you basically you use it, and every player around you is basically gripped towards you. I have a macro for it. You can actually do it to other people as well. But it's definitely something you want to be going for in Rated Battlegrounds. Okay, so let's talk briefly about macros. I'm not going to talk a great deal about them. They are all in the description, so you can just, you know, go ahead and steal them away. I will talk about a few of them now. Here we have the Master CC macro, I like to call it, and what it's going to do, so when you press the keybind, say for instance it's 5 like it is for me, it's going to do Strangulate / Asphyxiate on your current target. Then if you hold shift, it's going to go on your focus target. Now there's a lot of macros that work like that, like, you know, Death Grip, Mind Freezing. Definitely will be creating those macros. Next we have, like, you know, the burst macros. All you got to do is /cast Pillar of Frost, put your trinkets in there, and anything else like Orc Racial, Troll Racial, whatever the hell is left. You also got your stance macro here, just switches you between Frost and Blood Presence, very simple. We've got Mouse Over macro here, which is going to cast things at a mouse over, so you mouse over with a mouse, and then it will cast Death Grip or whatever ability is you want to put into the macro. Here we have macros that basically put each individual arena player on focus. Very, very helpful, because, you know, certain arena players go into stealth and you're like, you know, you don't want to be hovering around with a mouse on the arena frames, you just want to get macro that quickly does it. You know, we've got focus for Chains of Ice there, and we've also got Arena 1, 2, 3 macros for Dark Sim. The reason being is because you want to still CC as effectively as possible, basically. I also have that for Death Grip to do some quick interrupts. Say, you know, healers shouting at me, "Oh my god, Druid's cloning." I'm like, alright, okay, I'll just fucking Death Grip him rather than targeting. You don't have a time to like manually target in Arena, that's the whole point. I mean, a cast time is like less than 1 second sometimes, and you've got to interrupt that thing, you just don't have enough time to target around. Anything else like majorly important here? Not really. Apart from Cancelora macro, I've got Howling Blast on the mouse over. That's pretty much it. So let's go over all the things you need to know about Arena. Now, I'll go through it quickly. First of all, let's talk about damage. Now, a lot of people, what they do is they just train the same target the whole time, and it's not really an efficient way to put pressure out. What happens when you train the same target all the time? The healer puts hots and other kind of effects, you know, absorptions or nice things that keep him alive. And when a healer is CC'd, that healing is still going on, even if he's through CC. So your CC is a little bit wasted, and your damage is a little bit wasted. What you need to do is you need to switch. You need to hard switch. There's only one way of doing that. Let me talk you through it. First of all, when a target is, you know, in a bad spot or whatever, what you need to do is you need to pre-purge. Okay, if you see hots on the target you're about to switch on, purge them off. But don't make it look like you're switching on that target, because it has to be a bit of a surprise for the enemy team. Just look at that target, purge all the hots off, and then just like, you know, just chill for a bit. Maybe wait for your cooldowns, but what you really need to wait for is waiting for your CC chain. Say you're playing with a hunter, you want to wait for his trap, you want to wait for your stun, you want to wait for his wyvern, you want to wait for a warlock's fear. Well, actually you don't need to wait for that, but you want to wait for a psychic scream from a priest, whatever. So the vital thing to hard swapping is CC. So say you're training down a target, what you got to do, pre-purge. The second thing you do is you chain CC onto the healer, and then you make the hard swap. Okay, because that target is effectively not getting any healing from any hots or anything at all. You just hard swap, you do all your damage, preferably with your cooldowns, and you're going to get a lot of pressure out. You're going to force a lot of major cooldowns just by doing that, because you're essentially killing a target who's receiving no healing. It's like playing 2s with 2 DPS. So that is how you hard swap. You hard swap when they have no hots, and then you probably want to train that target for a bit longer. But then again, if you've already forced major cooldowns like deterrence, bubble, all that kind of thing, when you know a target doesn't have that, that is a good target to hard swap on. So say you're training down a target who doesn't have bubble, and then you switch onto a different target. I mean, that's completely fine, because what it's all about is basically just catching the arena enemy team completely off guard. You may also want to put a hard swap on the healer, but bear in mind you're not going to benefit from as much CC. Same thing though, you just want to pre-purge, and you want to wait for your stun CC to be coming off the cooldown, and also your DPS cooldowns. But also, whenever you're playing, pretty much most classes have a spell lock. What you want to do when you're swapping on a healer is time your spell locks, because if you overlap your spell locks, then, well, you're fucked. You're not really going to kill the healer. You have to say, like, okay, I'll go first, and then you go second. So you spell lock, 4 seconds silence, say that was a mind freeze, and then 3 seconds silence followed up after that by hunter counter shot. I mean, I don't think the counters or kicks and all that kind of stuff are on the DR. So, you know, if you're playing with a rogue, you can get 8 seconds of spell lock up there, which is really can't on top of your stuns. And you can put a healer out of the game for quite a long time, but the only way you're actually going to get a score of a kill is if you time your spell locks together, because obviously you can't benefit from other CC, because obviously damage breaks that kind of CC. Grip them. Get some. It's just a lock someone cast.
Double.
Okay, you're going to silence now. Can you see? Right, you get ready to lock. That's it.
Okay. Yeah.
There are 2 very important principles you want to be aware of. Basically, they're mistakes that get you killed. First one is loss. It means line of sight. Never line of sight your healer if you are taking a lot of damage. Sometimes you need to. Sometimes you need to go around the pillar to kill someone, but that's fine as long as you're not the one who's getting trained. But the thing is, that might make the enemy team more inclined to switch on you and put you in a stun and loss you, and then you're like dead. So make sure that you do not loss your healers for too long unless you have cooldowns which can keep you alive. just be wary of that. And also out of range, you don't want to be too far away from your healer. Always fight near pillars. Never fight out in the open unless you really need to. I suppose a DPS can go out in the open a lot, but it's really best to stay a little bit near a pillar so your healer can loss on the pillar, because if you force your healer out into the open, he can get very easily CC'd and very easily switched on and damaged. So you're not doing your healer a favour. Just make sure your healer's not in the open. Don't force him into a situation which makes him have to go out in the open to like get CC off or even to get heals off. Just keep your team alive. Be a helpful arena partner. Obviously peel your partners when they're taking too much damage with chains of ice, with your stun, and just like all it's about is just working together basically. For rated battlegrounds, well, the reason why Death Knights are deemed immediately as a target caller is because of Death Grip. Now Death Grip is an insane ability. What it's obviously going to do is you're going to put the enemy team in a really bad situation, because they're going to be in range of a lot of DPS and they can take a lot of DPS. So what I like to do is, when I'm hard swapping or whatever I'm doing, I Death Grip people in and then I start calling the target, if you know what I mean. In the opener, I start trying Death Grip a healer in to get a lot of pressure out and force a lot of cooldowns. But generally you always see melee DPS overextending, and you can force yourself to walk backwards and kind of Death Grip them even further away. But let's talk about actual target calling. Now, obviously I've talked about how to use Death Grip properly. Just use it to put the enemy team under a lot of pressure, put them in a really tight, horrible situation. Target calling, first of all, you have to treat everybody like a fucking dunce, because there's a pretty big chance that they are. I don't know why, but a lot of people who do rated battlegrounds are completely fucking retarded, and they need their asses wiped by the Death Knight. Okay, they cannot think for themselves. If you call out a target, say everyone just go on a priest, please. Okay, that'll happen for about 5 seconds. Then everyone will switch and start doing their own fucking thing and lose track. You need to repeat yourself a lot. Okay, say you're calling a target on the shaman, you need to be saying something like this, like, get on with shaman, get on with shaman, 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 come on, shaman, kill this fucking shaman, come on, what the fuck are you doing? Holy shit, Warlock, why don't you do some more fucking damage? Holy shit, get some fucking fears on the priest. Get the clone on the paladin. Come on, let's go on this fucking shaman. We've got to kill this fucking shaman right now. Pop your cooldown, stop slacking on damage. Kill this motherfucking shaman. And if you start taking that kind of approach, you will start to notice that the targets actually die, because you're basically doing everyone's fucking job for them. You're telling them where to put their damage, and start telling everyone where to put their CC. If you see like a healer there free casting, it's because someone isn't CCing them, because they're fucking retarded. Okay? What you got to do is you got to say, Warlock, what the fuck are you doing? Fear the paladin and do some damage on the shaman. Obviously don't call CC on the target you're trying to kill, but seriously guys, you need to call out where to put the damage and where to actually put the CC. Another trick that people tend to do is hard swapping. This is a really good thing to basically, when you hard swap, what people generally do is they spam all their CC on all the healers, and then they start casting whatever the hell they have to put out a lot of damage. What you gotta do is you basically gotta go, say you're training with shaman, right? Shaman, okay, we're gonna make a switch now, guys. Hello, everyone, wait the fuck up, because obviously you're not killing this target because you're fucking shit at your class. Put some CC on paladin, shaman. We're gonna swap onto the priest. Priest, get ready, guys. Priest, 3, 2, 1. Okay, everyone switch priest now. I'm death gripping him in. He's in a bad spot here. I've stunned him. Okay, priest. Kill this priest. What are you doing? Stop slacking on your damage. Come on, get some CC out there. And then, you start doing that. So, yeah, but hard swapping, what it's doing, it's just the same thing as arena. You pre-purge. You put all the healers in CC, and, effectively that whoever you're trying to train is taking a hell of a lot of damage and not getting any healing because the healers are all in CC. So let's very briefly go through a few arena compositions. I'll highlight what is kind of like unique about each setup, give you a little bit of advice on each of them. Now, I think the most viable at the moment is PHDK, or as I like to call it, HDDK, which is going to be Hunter, Druid, and Death Knight. The thing that's very unique about this comp, it has literally no peels. So you need to be putting pressure out all the fucking time. Your greatest peel is to force the other team to peel, if you get what I mean. You need to be 9% of the time you need a pressure, unless it's really, really necessary that you peel, then you peel. But really, you can do a lot of it anyway. You can put a melee in Chains of Ice, but what you want to be doing is doing damage all the fucking time, doing CC chains all the time, doing hard tops all the time, and that's what you need to be thinking of. Because PhD has absolutely unhealable damage. A healer cannot heal the damage of PhDK for long. So the thing you need to do is you need to set up traps, and you do that by using Asphyxiate. You stun the healer, and then the hunter will follow up with a trap onto the healer. This isn't really a healer killing comp, but nonetheless you can do it. You know, if you time up your counter, your kicks together, but really you just want to be swapping on the DPS. But yeah, you want to be. You can also set up traps with Chains of Ice just to slow the healer, because you know trap goes on instantly now, and it's a bit bigger. Just make sure your hunter's trapping over time and wivering over time, and just help him get out over CC, and encourage him to do damage. What hunters tend to do is like peel too much. If you peel too much, it's going to make the situation worse. You want to be putting pressure out all the time, and that's the thing about PhDK. You can put out so much pressure. It's like insane how much damage you can get out, and you need to be doing that damage all the time. Okay, because you want to force the other team to peel, and that will like loosen the damage on you. So the only way to peel really is to do pressure. People are quite liking the smoke bomb cleave at the moment. I played it a little bit. It's kind of nice. It is a healer killing comp. You're more than welcome to chain stun and chain kick the healer. That's a very, very viable thing to do. You should also be hard swapping, like I explained earlier on DPS, into smoke bombs, into your cooldowns, and you got a lot of CC. You got enough CC to like go on the DPS. There's nothing really unique about the comp other than it's just a face roll melee cleave, and you just need to make sure you're doing damage all the time. The thing to note about it is that you might be more inclined to get trained than the actual rogue, and if that happens, it's going to be very, very hard to put damage out. Simply by the fact you need to be spamming death strikes a lot more often, and you can only do that to someone in melee range. So if you're in that situation, you need to switch on a melee DPS so that you can actually keep yourself alive, and so you can actually still put some pressure out there. People are playing Frost DK and Warlock this season. It's not bad. It's a perfectly good comp. It's a little weak in terms of survival though. I suppose Hunter PhD is also. The thing is about playing with an Affliction is that you pretty much, he spreads his dots around, and you need to be hard swapping quite a lot because you can. You need to take advantage of the fact that you can hard swap a lot, and make sure obviously you're hard swapping with CC, because every target is going to have their health down pretty low. So you might even want to go Necrotic Plague to help out. I don't think it's massively viable, but really it's your job to actually score the kills. So you need to make sure you're actually absolutely on your target all the time. So, because the Warlock is essentially just wearing them down so they never get topped up, and you're the one who has to like score the killing blow. Now, a few DKs are playing with Boomkin, which is perfectly fine. Boomkin do a lot of dot damage these days. It's alright comp. I wouldn't say it's better than the 3 we've just mentioned, but it's fine. It has some great advantages, obviously with Solar Beam into roots and all that kind of thing. The only thing unique about that comp is basically Boomkin's going to get trained all the time, and really it's all about just like setting up Solar Beams out of a stun, out of Chains of Ice, out of the Druid's Root, all that kind of thing. You've also got Ret Paladin and Frost DK. I think that's actually more just as viable as Smoke Bomb Cleave. It's very nice because the Ret off heals, even though they've been a bit nerfed. And obviously with Bop, it's kind of like helpful. I don't know who's going to be more inclined to get trained. It's probably actually with DK. It is a healer, a killing comp, obviously, because you've got 2 spell locks, 2 kicks. So you want to be hard swapping all around the place onto the healers, force some major cooldowns, and then swap onto healer maybe. You can force a paladin to pop bubble, even if you're on DPS, and then you can switch on the paladin and pretty much kill him because he has no bubble. But yeah, it's a very good melee cleave. Melee cleaves are really good against range DPS because they can prevent a lot of damage on range DPS, but just by spell locking like a mage or a warlock or anything. So that's really nice for peels. It's basically you're peeling yourself just with spell locks over time, very short cooldown. As long as you get that spell locks up over time, you're going to be preventing a lot of damage or preventing a lot of healing. I mean, those are the only comps that I would strongly recommend. I played with a Shadow Priest, it just didn't work. Maybe it was because of the healer wasn't right. In general, I would recommend going with Resto Shaman, Resto Druid, and maybe a Mistweaver. I would not recommend going with Paladin. For some reason Paladin just cannot keep a DK alive. I don't know why. Every paladin I've played with just seems to suck ass. Disc Priest I wouldn't recommend that much either. A lot of people have been saying, Disc Priest had gone downhill, which is a bit of a shame, to be honest. I kind of like Priest. What else is left? I don't think there's anything left out. Just make sure you don't play with a Paladin, because a Paladin is just gonna let you get killed, basically, if they're playing with a DK. So avoid Paladin, and I strongly recommend Druid or Resto Shaman. Alright lads, that's pretty much the end of the video. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comment section. My channel is going to be a bit slow in the coming days. This is because I'm working on this video. I'm working on an Unholy Death Knight PvE guide, and I'm also working on Finisher 4. So 3 very big videos, but I will have a Q&A series up and rolling soon as I can get it uploaded. My name is the Metagoblin. Until my next video, ciao!